Hi. There's something I want to talk to you guys about when it comes to epicseven specifically, and it has to do with the arena system. If you guys didn't know, there's been a change specifically to arena that affects the way that you climb and affects pretty much everyone's performance when it comes to trying to increase their ranks or to climb along the ladder. But before I get into that, let me make this disclaimer. If you are someone that, for whatever reason, is just coasting in champion, or if you're in champion and below, the changes I'm about to describe will likely not affect you that much. If that's the case, that's okay. However, I do want to bring awareness to the fact that the arena system as we know it looks a little bit different, and I'm not sure, and I'd like to basically poll the community for how you guys feel about the changes, but here are my initial thoughts. What we know about the changes to the system right now are that the win streaking bonuses that we have previously, where you would continuously win, and instead of just getting something like maybe 9 points, you would gain 10, 11, 12, upwards of, I think, to like maybe 20, the 20s-ish range in terms of how many bonus points you got for completing an activity or completing a battle. And for the most part, I understand where the criticism towards the old system was. There were players that had 30,000 points, 25,000 points, and one of the old videos I did regarding this topic was highlighting the fact that there were so many points from some specific players. Now, again, this is not on the players themselves. This is not to say that these players, should be punished. You spend the Sky Stones and you spend the time playing, you should get a reward. That's just how the game works. However, to discourage this, they, of course, implemented some systems, including win streaking being more punished. However, based on the new systems that we're seeing, the amount that you gain and the punishment for you losing a win streak and how much you lose is much more severe than we're thinking. Now, I know what you're thinking. Connor, to punish the top end, we have to stop it so that, or punishing the top ends is like a means for, some players that want to achieve Legend 1 for the first time. We have to do this so that they can reach Legend 1 for the first time, or we want to make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity to get to the top. And if this was the goal of the changes, I think it's a commendable one in a sense, although I think there are some drawbacks and criticisms and flaws to adjusting or to making this change. But let me show you guys what the current state of Arena looks like. So before we get into that, I want to make clear, I did participate in the last season of Arena, and this is not supposed to be a flex, but simply to show you that, yeah, look, in the Pursuit season, I was playing. I played Arena, and I'm generally familiar, I'd say, with how the system works. Not perfectly, but in case you got, oh, right, I forgot, because you can't enter this right now, and I just finished climbing. Here's what the current top of the leaderboard looks like. Mind you, again, it says it ends in January, and it's at the date of this recording, it's November 4th. It's like in the middle of the night after it just finished, or the activity just finished. It is the first week basically of Arena. That says 12,535 points. So, obviously we have to talk about the elephant in the room. This system, or the changes that they made to the point generating system, was specifically with preventing players from going too high at such an insane pace in mind. But as you're seeing right now, this individual, I don't know who exactly this is. I've personally never seen this turmeric person before, unless they changed their name ever in Arena. They just decided to start climbing. They're at 12,500 points. They've got a decent read on Arena, surely, and a lot of spare time, and they're rank 1 right now. But that's the crazy thing about this. There is not only a player that's already at 12,500 points in the first week, this isn't even any of the old names that we had formerly seen in Arena. If you guys aren't familiar with some of the with some of the names that you're likely familiar with when it comes to Arena, you're missing people like Lucira, you're missing Cry, like all these players who, of course, I'm sure maybe want to break, don't want to spend too much time. They're the players that you should be the most afraid of, because they're the actual people from last season that were getting 25, 20,000, 30,000 points, and this is just again, no offense to Turmeric or anything, but this is not someone that has constantly proven themselves to be like a 30,000 arena point climber. This is, for all we know, just a random person that got a good read on the meta and is now at 12,500 points. Now, maybe you're thinking to yourself, Connor, 12,500 points is still half of what the last season's points were. And okay, you're right. It is half of the points of last season's, like, end of season peak, even though it's literally the first week. But 12,500 points when there's only roughly 7 or 8 legend players in the game right now. You can't see it, but there was less than 30 legend players in the top 100 of this current arena season, which makes sense because you're seeing like the point distribution right now. However, this player is at the top and all he had to do was just play. It wasn't like he was fighting anyone, devising like a specific plan. It's not like he had years of experience to try and prepare for this. He just put his time into it, and I respect it. More power to this player. He got to 12,500 points. Like, that is more than double what my current points are, and I've been using my flags pretty religiously. I'm like at roughly the 5,900 6,000 range, and I was like 160 like in like the top 100-ish range of arena. This does not fix the old problem that we had originally been complaining about, which is, hey, like, what if I'm someone that wants to reach Legend 1 for the first time? Or if I want to reach maybe, like one of the achievements at like the top 10 or something like that for the first time. The honest truth is that effectively nothing has changed. And now, of course, if you are someone that's just trying to do arena for the arena shop, what do you think? Okay, who cares? You're getting your points, you can use it on this gear, and that's like a completely different conversation of whether or not you think the gear is good or not. But ultimately, you can even use it for charms, which is just helpful, no matter which way you spin it. So in terms of rewards, I don't think it's that big a deal. But if they want to talk about valuing or actually benefiting players that are, or trying to make arena more balanced in a gacha game, obviously is kind of like an oxymoron, but you get what I mean. This is not the way to do it. Now, if this was the preseason, I would say, okay, you know what, Smilegate made a slight change. That's okay. Didn't really look like it's changing anything, because after the first week, even without the hard hitters competing, there's someone that's at 12.5 thousand. What happens when the real, like, degenerate theory crafters, or the players with way more gear, or that spend way more time theory crafting, actually get into the mines and start start developing real team compositions to beat out, the Harsetti compositions, or to beat out the Afternoon Soak Flans? Well, the answer is, based on this, they're probably going to blow this 12.5 thousand out of the water, or at the very minimum, they're going to match or be very similar. I have decent faith in the top 3 from last season, given that they were well over something like, I don't know, double the amount of points from the other players at the time of them playing. And they could have continued to play if they wanted to, but after you hit like 14,000 more points, which is like, I don't know, like 1,000 more matches than anyone else in terms of victory, you probably don't have to play anymore. But it's concerning. And now, before I get any further, I do want to kind of describe exactly what I've seen people use for teams too, or teams as well, in order to climb, to kind of give you an idea of what it is nowadays you have to do to climb. Now, if you aren't familiar with her already, of course, you have some of the most devilish characters in the game already that exist. You have characters like Harsetti on injury that exist. You have characters like Afternoon Soak Flan with Bloodstone, or with damage, and she does a ridiculous amount of damage. And you also have characters like, I don't know, Benevolent Roman, or you have Bloodblade Karen on defenses, and they one-shot you, they punish you. But what do you use to counter these teams? And well, okay, for some of the team compositions, I use the following. One of my favorite teams that I'm using at the moment is this one, which is a recent cleave that I saw a few people talking about and developing. I should actually move this over. Apologies. But here's what the team looks like. This is a very fast cleaving team. There is some RNG and some unfortunate, factors you have to kind of consider before playing this. But long story short, this is a Zeo who pushes back the fastest target, or a target that you need to push back, i.e. it could be someone like Harsetti, or it could even be Ilanov. He holds a book, and, you know, you give a book to a Briarwitch Iseria who can defense break, hopefully. Oh, well, this one's ungeared right now because I regeared it because I have 2 Briarwitch Iserias. But she would be on Renewed Will. She's max damage. She doesn't need effect resistance because we're going to be avoiding the Bellions. You have a Bloodblade Karen who, again, could also be on attack boot. For the sake of this, I'm on speed because I was playing a little bit of RTA. But you also have something like Alexis Basket, or you have Windrider on this character. And then finally, you have Frida, who really, the speed on the Frida doesn't matter either. But it would be nice if you have bird's eye view so that you can have more souls. Based on the description that I just described to you guys, this should be a decently fast team composition, right? That's what it sounds like. If you guys are familiar with anything relating to Bloodblade Karen or with Briarwitch Iseria teams in Arena, they're very quick to kill and very easy to play. But with Harsetti and all the new units in the game, this is not actually even that fast of a team. Now, you guys might be familiar with one of my favorite Arena teams back in, 2 months ago now at this point, where they were very high performing or very consistent, and they were quite good at one-shotting tank team compositions, and it's this team. Now, I get it. Of course, there's an ML5 on this team. There's a speed imprint, which is maybe annoying to kind of deal with, and also a limited in Frida. But this was one of the fastest, most consistent cleaves that you had on the market. It cleared basically everything except for the Infinite Horizon Acades teams. But otherwise, it did very well, and sometimes had a bit of RNG against the Holy Sack teams. But generally speaking, if you had enough damage and you had Windrider, you could clear. And this, on average, would be like a 1-minute team if you're actually putting your effort into it. And there was there was minor amounts of RNG. Like, some people did, like, Destina teams to kind of counteract it. But on the average, like, during that season, I was very, very high up. Or at the time, I was very, very high up. Specifically because all I did was just... well, I used this team, and I cleared. And the reason why I'm going over this, and I promise you there's a point to this, is because this team composition is the New Age Luna Cleave, or the New Age Luna Variation. And this has way more RNG, because you have to essentially rely on the Briarwitch Iseria having enough damage, while also, in some cases, not wanting to be faster than the Bloodblade Karen, because... against certain tanky teams, if your Bloodblade Karen ends up going first, even while being built as full damage, this Briarwitch Iseria will not kill. And then there's other factors to consider too, including things like, when I push back the Ilanov, because Ilanov is one of the biggest answers to this team composition, will I actually push it back 50% with Zeo, or will it resist? Now, I've only described to you 2 of the major RNG issues that I've encountered with this team, or that counter this team. But all of this, and even in a perfect, or even if you ignore all of this and you have the perfect team composition that you're seeing right here, it's still technically slower in most cases than the Vildred Cleave. Simply put, because, again, you have to take a look at what factors are on the field. You have to make sure you're fast enough, and all these things. And while the Frida Cleave, or the Vildred New Moon Luna Cleave had to deal with things like Eternus, it did not feel nearly this scary when it came to fighting against this. Now, again, the reason why I think this is so concerning is because, well, you've seen this cleave, but this cleave honestly is a bit risky, and there's times where this doesn't work. And if you want to be consistent like the number one ranked guy, the other team that I end up using a lot is this one. Some form of Afternoon Soak Flan, Ilanov, Mediator Cowrick, and Death Dealer Ray. Now, as with all team compositions, the slow team composition, slow and steady wins the race. And you will, in most cases, be able to clear and perform at a slower rate, but you'll be pretty consistent, and if you're just using your flags, this is fine. However, when I went to go test this team composition, I'm not joking, it took me 15 minutes to auto battle this against a Mort, Harsetti, Ruel, and Afternoon Soak Flan team. Now, again, I'm not trying to say that this is abnormal, because all PvP, especially in Arena, ends up being some form of quick battle this, or auto battle that, or cleave whatever. But the issue now is that not only are you punished even harder if you miss a single win streak, which is already a bit harder to do now because again, you're at the mercy of Harsetti and Holy Sacks and all these random things going on depending on what team composition you're running. Not only are you at the mercy of all this other RNG, now your climbing is also hampered greatly. Now, final thing that I'll say that you guys know, but I understand that it might sound like this is just, oh, Connor, you should just spend more time playing the game. And, okay, you're right. Like, the honest truth is that you're right. I could spend a lot more time playing the game. However, when I'm sleeping, for instance, and this is, I wish I could show you guys a screenshot of it. I'll try and find it as I'm talking about it. There was specifically a run, or when I specifically woke up today, I saw my defense log looking like, where is it? I apologize. I'm trying to find it. Yes. Here you go. Completely unprovoked. I had skipped a day of fighting because I went out for Halloween. This was my defense log. I went to, I skipped, like, maybe at most 16 hours of play. I didn't hit anyone. It dropped me to Champion 3. Now, again, I know this might not sound like, this sounds like a boohoo, you should play more kind of issue. But Champion 3 and my defense, by the way, is the most, or well, arguably the most meta team of all, which I have Harsetti, I have Ilanov, I have Afternoon Soak Flan, and I have Ruel on my team. Some form of that is like a very meta team, and that team composition specifically died 22 times without me hitting. Now, if this doesn't sound alarming to you, I can understand why, because you're probably used to losing so much, and you guys really, I don't think you guys will really really be able to grasp how annoying this is until you are trying to get into Legend, or until you're trying to like maintain something like Emperor. And the reason for that is because in the past, yes, you were okay with, or you were used to maybe losing something like 20 games or maybe 30 games, right, as you went to bed, or if you stopped playing for a day. The difference is that when you came back to climb, it was not as if you were literally Atlas trying to raise the world back. Now, again, I understand that the changes that they made to the system are specifically so that the top end don't climb too outrageously. But if this system is already punishing players in the middle that are trying to maybe just coast an Emperor, or maybe just trying to be in top 100, this is quite frustrating. And again, this is coming at a very annoying time because it's not even as though I'm not spending the time to maybe re-gear my units in a way so that I can play the game out properly. I've re-geared my Ilanov. If you guys are familiar with the prior videos I've done with Ilanov where I've shown her, she wasn't even on damage. I re-geared her to be on pen so that I could deal more damage. And, you know, again, similarly, my Flan last time was on immunity to deal with all the BS that I had to like accommodate for with, me not wanting to get hit by Harsetti. And then even for Flan, which is a character that most people have given up, I have a specific Flan, technically a second Flan, because, this one's in garbage right now. But I had a second Flan specifically dedicated for Arena, and I have her at 230 effectiveness. The point of what I'm saying, guys, is that, yes, it's early in the season, and honestly, a lot of my initial thoughts towards the season are skewed, of course, as with everything in this game. But based on my experiences and my time spent both playing slow to try and climb, spent fast trying to climb, and even as someone that has been trying to play both casually and hardcore, my experience has been bad. I feel like right now my experience with Arena is that I need to make an impenetrable defense so that I don't have to play 24/7. and so that it doesn't feel like I'm constantly spending sky stones for no reason. But I don't really feel like I'm able to do that right now because every defense gets solved, or every defense can be solved, or enough people can maybe hit you once where you get knocked down enough. And then all of a sudden, I'm down 100 points in maybe, in maybe like 6 hours. And again, that might not seem like much, but I'm also not being guaranteed, or I don't have like a very surefire way to climb without encountering RNG. If someone cheeses me, which is very common in arena, if I get disconnected for whatever reason, if I if I misclick, anything, any of these notions end up happening, or any of these factors end up happening that may or may not be my fault at all, I'm now forced to basically play, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 extra matches per loss to compensate for the streaking that I was doing beforehand, and I think that's a bit alarming. Now, at the end of it all, I do want to say that with this video, it's the first week of the season. It might not be that big a deal, but with Arena, it kind of does matter, or every single week does kind of matter. You don't want to get behind, and if you're trying to vie for that first spot, like the individual that we took a look at, like Mr. Turmeric, if he was for some reason, or if, I don't think this is the case, but if for whatever reason the top end legend players, for whatever reason, felt that the new system didn't benefit them in a way and they were upset with the changes, well, I don't really think it would be fair for individuals that, my point is, it doesn't feel like you can wait too long on these changes, because every week in Arena matters. I apologize if I didn't come across the most concise in this video. The truth is that I've literally been playing Arena for about 5 or 6 hours to try and catch up to this, but I wasn't even close. I tried a couple different variations and team compositions, and I re-geared, and I'm not blaming any specific system for my shortcomings. I know that I suck. I know it. I'm at most trying to hit top 100, but to not be able to climb primarily because I lost 20 games while I was sleeping feels a little bit unfortunate. And it wasn't even as though I didn't have the units built, or I didn't have, like, some sort of defense. I just random, like, luck of the draw, got hit by a couple of people, but now it takes infinitely longer for me to climb, which sounds okay for the top end. But if this is happening to me when I'm in champion and I'm not even quite at that emperor point yet, I don't know. It feels like the system and win streaking should be much more punishing towards, like, maybe the top 20 or maybe the top 50 even. But even for you to get into the legend like bracket, I believe there's an achievement reward for that. I think that's going to be even harder for players to do now, considering that I'm trying my hardest, or my damnedest right now, to streak and play, and I must have used at least like maybe like 500 to 600 sky stones alone today to try and climb. And through either RNG, I disconnected twice today because my internet was a little faulty, and through other mishaps of my own, I was only able to get to something like 150 or 140. And then I resorted to using the slow composition, which got me up to like maybe 120. And then I pretty much stopped, because what else am I going to do with that? In any case, though, guys, that's going to be it for this video. Again, I don't mean to preach this as like a I am right and my opinion has to be agreed upon. But I'd love to get your guys' opinion on this, because based on my experience with Arena, it's quite tough. It's a lot more than I wanted to invest into on my Saturday or my Sunday night. I do traditionally spend, a couple hours during Sunday and a little bit here and there where I'll play a little bit. Like, I'll play like 2 matches every like hour or so, or every couple half an hour or so, to kind of keep things up. And again, that's really not that big a deal for me. I'm basically just using my flags until the very end, where I try to at least make my, like, get into like that top 70, maybe like top 50 range, so I can just stay in the top 100. But this time around, guys, like, I get it. I had to climb from champion 3, but literally yesterday morning, I was champ 1. And then I wasn't able to get back into legend. Like, I ended last season at 89. So like me being in champ 1, like I had a head start compared to other players even, but I don't know. It feels weird. Again, I'd love to get your guys' opinions and maybe solutions or thoughts you have on this. But thanks again for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys learned something. Make sure to check out the rest of my socials, and I'll see you guys all next time. Stay safe, stay healthy. Good night.